So hi everybody, and welcome to my Facebook Live masterclass for this evening. We tonight are going to be talking about our 5-step to service accommodation masterclass with you tonight. It'd be great, first of all, if you can just confirm that you can hear me okay. Just a very quick hello Lee in the comments box. Good evening Bobby, great for you to join us. Long time no see. If you could just comment that you can hear me okay, that would be fantastic, please. I really appreciate that. Doreen, good evening to you. Joe, good evening to you. Thank you so much for listening in. So if you can just confirm you can hear me, it's nice and loud and clear. That'd be fantastic. Oh, Kelly, good to hear from you. Fantastic, guys. That's great news. So thank you so much for joining me this evening. My name's Lee Pemberton. And tonight, as I've just shared with you, we're going to focus in on what I call the 5 steps to setting up and scaling a service accommodation business. Now, I've been doing a lot of masterclasses on this subject over the past month, and this is really the Q&A based around that. I have put a link for you to download the workbook. If you haven't done that already, I recommend that you do that. If you just click on the link, you'll be able to download the free workbook, and then you can put your notes in as we go through this workshop together over this period of time now. So that link is there. It should work fine. You can just click on there. If you haven't got the workbook already, then please click on the workbook link and download the workbook, because there'll be loads of notes, I hope, and huge content that I'm going to share with you throughout this workshop that we're now going to be doing together. So let's get started, because there's lots to go through. I'd like to thank everybody that has been messaging me with questions. Please keep those questions coming. I will work my way back through the list, so just keep firing on questions and I'll work my way back through. This is a Q&A session. I'm going to share a little bit of content to start with, and then it's all about your questions. I've got a whole list of questions here from what people have been emailing me, so I'll be sharing those with you as we go on now throughout this workshop together. But do fire your questions over as you think of them, and I'll be happy to work my way back and answer as many of those as I can for you. So 5 steps to service accommodation. What do we mean by that? So quite simply, what I want to share with you is this. Now look, I'm going to be honest with you, okay? Service accommodation, as we all know, is not an easy business. We know it's a tough business. You know, when it's not like one of those HMO businesses where you can just let the properties out and you don't have to worry about them. You put tenants in there and you just receive the rent on a monthly basis. I jest when I say that, by the way, for all you HMO specialists that are out there. I know it's a little bit harder work than that, but it's not a proper business. Let's be honest. It's not like service accommodation, and things happen. You know, it's really, really hard work, as we all know. You know, you're working with guests on a day-to-day basis. It's a constant evolving changeover. You're dealing with a team of people. You're dealing with housekeepers. You're dealing with maintenance. You're dealing with guests. You could be dealing with landlords, and then you could be dealing with finance companies, etc., etc. There's so many moving parts when we talk about service accommodation. And so I think it's really important that you come back to basics from time to time, and you really focus in on what I believe are like the 5 key steps to running a successful service accommodation business. Now, as I said, you know, quite recently, you know, I've had some real challenges around our service accommodation management business, and you know, it's tough. Even after 20 years of running service accommodation, it's a hard business, okay? And I think it's important, as I said, to come back, step back, and just assess and look at the basics and just make sure you've got everything in place. And so what I want to spend time going through with you now is the 5 steps to running a service accommodation business. So I've been investing in service accommodation now for the past 20 years. And throughout that time, I've pretty much seen everything you can think of to do with service accommodation. I've seen, you know, I've had some fantastic highs. I've won some fantastic contracts with corporate clients direct over the years, which has been brilliant. And raising like big invoices for those clients has been brilliant. I've experienced where those clients don't pay you. and that's obviously, you know, the worst feeling ever, all the way through to challenges that you face with regards to, you know, your housekeeping teams, to guests that trashed property. And I don't want to paint a picture for those of you that are looking at getting into service accommodation of thinking that, you know, it's a really bad business. It's not. It's a great business. You know, I love it, but I think you've got to have that kind of mindset that, you know, you're going to face challenges, and it's important that you work through that. And really what I want to go through now with you throughout this workshop is really some of those challenges, and also to share with you, you know, some of the successes that are there for you to be able to achieve and work towards, but keeping it all the time within this framework of the 5 steps. So what are the 5 steps? For those of you that haven't downloaded the workbook yet, or you haven't seen my masterclass based around the 5 steps to service accommodation, I do encourage you to do that. Okay, it's there, it's free, it's there for you, it's huge content. I'd like to hope you agree with me with that. And I've just put it out there just to really share my knowledge with you and breaking the 5 steps to SA down for you. So that's there for you to download anytime you want, and you can click on the link that's on this post now to be able to do that. This is a Q&A session based around it, so I'm not going to be going into detail around the 5 steps to SA, but I'm going to just summarize them right now so we know exactly what we're talking about, and we're all on the sort of, you know, the same page, if you like. So the 5 steps to service accommodation, if we look at them as a summary, are as follows. Number 1, you have to do your research. Now that sounds pretty obvious, and you're going to say, Lee, come on, we all know we've got to do our research. But no, seriously, you've got to do your research, okay? I see so many people that are being offered deals, that are looking at sort of different locations and what have you. Now, no, service accommodation can work in most locations, but you've got to do your research. You need to understand the types of guests that are coming into your area. Okay, that's really important that you understand the types of guests that are going to be coming in and staying within the location where you're looking. So a couple of examples of that could be, you know, your city centre, and you've got your 1-bedroom apartment, and therefore you're going to be really focused potentially on your kind of corporate clients that are going to be coming into that city centre, or even your leisure guests that are going to be coming in and staying in that city centre. Where you could go a few streets out, and you could be looking at, say, a 3-bedroom, say, terraced house that's just a few streets out from the city centre. You're paying about the same sort of rent if you're going to be doing it on a rent-to-rent strategy. And you could be focused then more on your contractor market. So it may not be so much your corporates, it may be more your contractor market. So these could be shop fitters that are coming into an area. It could be guys that are working on a particular construction project. And you know, the 3-bed terrace house, as an example, can work really, really well for you. But it's really understanding, when you do your research, you've got to understand the types of guests that you're looking at, that you're going to be looking at accommodating. Okay, so I'd love to know if you've got any comments around that. Please share that now, and I'd love to be able to then kind of expand upon that if you want me to a lot further. I have got a couple of questions around research, so I will come back to that. Okay, so research is number 1, really understanding the types of guests that are coming to your area. You know, on the 5 steps to SA masterclass that I put together, I explain exactly how you can find all that information out. Okay, so again, I'm happy to share that here with you. Just pop that in as a question and I'll come back to that. So number 2 is then focusing on the type of property that those guests are going to be staying in. So like I've just mentioned, if it's the 1-bedroom apartment in the city centre and you're focusing on the corporate guests, you know that that 1-bedroom apartment could work. It could be a 2-bedroom. If you're going for 2-bedroom properties, I recommend to try and have 2 bathrooms where you can, because like you're kind of selling, you're upgrading guests some of the time if you're offering them a 2-bed with 1 bathroom, because you're not always going to get, in my experience, corporates wanting to share a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom property. They pretty much want to have their same, they want to have their own individual bathrooms. Now, it may be an ensuite bathroom with a shower, and then the main bathroom may have a bath only. You know, again, not always a major challenge with that, but it's something that just to be mindful of. That can work. There's no issue with that at all. But just be mindful that you try to focus on kind of 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom properties where you can. And then, as I've just mentioned, you may want to come slightly outside the city, and you may be looking at then maybe like your 3-bedroom terrace, or even like sort of 4-bedroom houses. Now they can work really, really well. And again, we've got a question on that, which I'll come back to and answer in a bit. But they can work really well. I know of people that are having great success with managing, if you like, not just service rooms, not just necessarily letting out rooms, but letting out the whole house. And they are really achieving some really good revenue on those types of properties. So I'll go into more detail about that. So number one is research. Number two in the 5-step modules is the type of property. So that brings us on to number three. So we know the types of guests we're accommodating. We know the type of property that we're going to be placing those guests into. Now, number three, we need to look at how we're going to market to those guests. How we're going to find those guests to come in and stay with us. So typically, most people are going to be focused on booking.com, and absolutely you need to do that. Airbnb, there's a whole range of other platforms out there, like from HomeAway, TripAdvisor. There's lots. There's hotels.com. There's all the ones you see advertised on TV. You can advertise on all of those platforms, okay? I wouldn't recommend necessarily saying, like in my experience, going with all of them. I'd pick sort of like 4 or 5 that work for you. So we've sort of found that our properties that are that we operate in central London, HomeAway works really well for us. Airbnb works well for us as well. Okay, we've got challenges around the 90-day rule, and that is a question that I will answer, that someone's already asked me to answer that for them, which I will do shortly. But depending on your location, I know that when we look at sort of more kind of like, out of town or like seaside type resorts, then I know Expedia can work really well because it's more kind of like packaged stays, more like for the leisure market, so that can work well for you. So again, it's just understanding where you're going to be advertising, what platforms you're going to be advertising on, and then you've got the whole range of agents to work with, from like your Situs and your Silver Doors and what have you. They're all out there for you as well to be able to advertise your property. They have obviously set criteria, but they can also work. But then there's obviously looking at direct marketing and direct business. And I'll go, again, there's a question on that, so I'll come back and answer that in a short while for you. But you want to be trying to build in as many direct bookings as you can. And you can do that by systemizing and putting things in place for that. So I definitely recommend to do that. And there's a whole range of things within the area that you could look at. You could look at your local theatre companies, through to look at what contractors, I said, what construction projects are taking place near us. It could be a new shopping centre that they're building, and they're going to be construction workers that are going to need accommodation. So where they're going to stay, well, they could stay in your property. So it may be property that you've already got, and then you're trying to find the right type of guest to stay in, or it may be you can see what types of guests are out there, and then you go and find the type of property to accommodate those guests. But once you've done that, you've then got to make sure that you can market to those guests. And I'd love to know if anyone's got any comments that they want to share within the community and within this kind of post right now. It'd be great to hear what other people are doing in terms of like direct marketing, and I'll come back to that when we get around to the direct marketing questions. Okay, so number 3 is marketing. So number 1, again, is research. Number 2 is focusing on the property. Number 3 is marketing. Number 4 is all about operations. And this is the key bit to the business. I mean, they're all key bits to the business, but operations is really the key bit to be able to free up your time so you're not involved with the business, really kind of like having to micromanage absolutely everything. You are going to be doing that to start with, and obviously I'm going to encourage you to do that as much as possible. So I recommend to really roll the sleeves up and get yourself involved with your service accommodation business if you're able to start with. But once you've done that, then you really want to make sure that you've got the right systems in place. So it could be like a housekeeping system. You've got that in place and you've done the cleaning for yourself. I encourage you to do that. I know some of you are going to go, no way, Lee, I'm not going to do the cleaning. But I do encourage you to try and at least clean some of the apartments or houses to start with, so you can see how long it takes for you to clean these properties. You can then just create a checklist, and then you hand that checklist over to your housekeeper, and then it's their responsibility to run through that checklist every single time when there's a clean taking place. So it's important to get your housekeeper to really buy into the fact of looking after your property for you. You may have a maintenance person as well that runs alongside that, sits alongside the housekeeper. So I really encourage you to get your team to take ownership as much as possible. If you've got someone helping you updating your rates on booking.com and the different platforms, really get them to take ownership. Obviously, reward them for kind of being involved and taking ownership, and at the same time, whether it's your housekeeping team, if things are not going right, if there's like guest reviews that are not very good in terms of the cleaning, make sure they're aware of that. And you've got to really pick these things up as quickly as you can. I've learned the hard way that if you leave things, okay, and you just assume the team are doing what they're meant to be doing, you do pay the price for that. So I really do encourage you to make sure that you pick up on these things and you really do kind of manage your team as much as you possibly can. And if you do that, you can create yourself a really, really nice little business where you're not having to be involved, every single minute of the day. You can put responsibility over to your team as you build your business up. Okay, a lot of people are talking about obviously trying to build up business and kind of like, take over the world. I've been there, I've tried to do that. Look, it's really, really hard work. I would encourage you to create a really nice boutique serviced accommodation business. Really get it right, get great guest reviews, build a really good team up, really focus on your profits. Get the business that really functions well for you, okay? And then slowly scale up from there. Again, I've learned over the years that, if I look back, if I reflect back now, that the best sort of times that I had with service accommodation was where I had like complete control over my properties, and I have a small team and they were looking after everything. My profits were really, really good, really, really profitable. As soon as you then sometimes start to try and scale up and go too big, and especially if you do it too quickly, which I kind of made the mistake of, your profits just dwindle straight away so quickly, because you're kind of like bringing in the £10 notes, but the £5 notes are falling out the back pocket. So it's really important that you really try and focus in on your business and make sure that you're making as much profit as you can. You're really streamlining everything as much as you can. So that brings me onto step number 5, which is really finance and what I call KPIs, key performance indicators. So you need to really then focus in on the numbers and set yourself some really clear and key objectives, if you like, and measure exactly what you're doing. So again, there's a question around that, and I'll come back and answer that in a short while. But try and focus on things like, it could be like, say, your occupancy level, and you want to get your occupancy, say, from 60% to 65%, and then 65 to 70%, and then kind of set yourself a target on a month-by-month basis and measure that out, okay? You may want to focus on what we call your kind of average nightly rate. So you take the number of days throughout the month and you divide that by your revenue target. So you may want to focus it along those lines and really just try and get that average nightly rate up on a month-by-month basis. You may want to do it along those lines. So there's different measures, and I'll share those with you because someone's asked that question in a short while, and I'll be able to go into a bit more detail with you. There's some brilliant questions coming through, so thank you so much. Carolina, I can see that you've asked a few questions. I will come back and answer these, okay? I will absolutely do that, and I'll answer as many questions as I can. We're going to finish by 9 o'clock, okay? So this is 1 hour in total. So we've got like a good kind of 40 minutes, or just over 40 minutes now to kind of really go through the questions. So in summary, I want you to really focus on like really what the 5 steps to running a successful serviced accommodation business is. So we need to do the research. You need to know the type of guest that's going to be coming in to stay. You need to know the type of property that guest is going to stay in. You need to focus on the marketing, how you're going to get those guests in to stay. Then you're going to focus on the operational side of your business and really build up on that team. And then you're going to focus on the finance and the KPIs around that. So if you bring all those 5 elements together, that's what you've got to really focus on. Sometimes, as I said, you need to go back to basics and just go through each part and make sure that you've covered each one of those. And as I've shared, for those of you that just joined us, if you download the workbook that's on this link, that's a link now on this post, that will give you the 5 steps, and it's a free workbook that's there for you, and you can make notes and you can kind of like just work that through your business, whether it's now as you're listening to me or in the future. But I really encourage you to do that. Okay, so keep the questions coming. What I did was I put out to my community an email earlier, and I said, look, if you've got any questions, we're going to do a Facebook Live tonight that's all focused on the 5 steps to service accommodation. If you've got any questions, then please email me those questions, and I'd love to answer those for you. So I gave them all a promise. I promised them that I would answer their questions first. So we've got a number of questions here that I'm going to go through and answer now, okay, which I've got here, which I've written down off the emails that have come through. And then if you have any questions, if this triggers any questions for you as we go through this, then please add the questions onto the list, and I'll be really happy to work my way through and answer those. We'll go all the way through to, as I said, to on the hour. And if I haven't answered your questions beyond that, I will come back and answer, and I'll pick them up on the post, and I'll come back and answer those for you as we go along. So hopefully that's cool for everybody, and you're sitting nice and comfortable. You poured yourself a nice drink. I've got a coffee at the moment, so a little bit early for a glass of wine for me. But hopefully you're doing that, you're relaxed, and you can just plug in and listen to the questions. So Here we go. Okay, so first question was from Leon. And Leon's question is, how do I decide if a location is a good location? So Leon's question is, how do I decide if a location is a good location? So if we bring that back, Leon, to looking at the steps, okay, again, it comes back to the research. So on the 5 steps to SA Masterclass, I go into quite a lot of detail on this, if you want to listen to that, but the key points to that I would be suggesting to you are as follows. You need to understand like what the mix is in terms of like what the corporate mix is and what the leisure mix is, okay, within the area that you're looking at, okay. You can find that by going onto the Tourist Board website. So let's just say that we're within England, so you go on the English Tourist Board website. Obviously if you're in Scotland, it'd be the Visit Scotland websites and what have you. So I really encourage you to do that. And there's a lot of information on the Tourist Board websites. You've got to just, because they're government-based sites, you've got to just kind of work your way through and find the information. But there's a lot of information on there, and they will share with you things like what occupancy levels are, what the average daily rates are on there as well, and they would normally have a report that kind of gives you the trend over previous months as well. So you can do quite a lot of research by just going on, just Google searching and going on the Tourist Board websites. Okay, so that's the first thing that I definitely recommend to do. And then the other thing to do is then look at booking.com and bring up like, let's say, your 5 favorites by clicking on the heart sign. Okay, so like 5 properties that you see as your competitors on the booking.com site, and then you can kind of track the prices of those for now and in future months as well. And that will give you a good idea as to kind of what the trend is, what property price and what the rental prices are being sold out for hotels and obviously for service departments as well. So definitely recommend to do that. And then on booking.com, just look at the competition, just see who else is around, see what other people are offering out there and what sort of prices that they're coming out at. There is a profit matrix that's on my Facebook page. Again, it's a free download. You can just click on that and download that, and you can put your numbers into the profit matrix to see how profitable your property is. But they would be the main things. I think overall, overarching that is, like, I would really focus on kind of like city centre locations, or kind of like, you know, just maybe just slightly out of town locations. I wouldn't be looking too remote. If you're going to go remote, then you need to look at obviously who your market is, who you're trying to attract in. I'm not saying not to do that, but I'm just suggesting that if you want to try and find out what's a good location, then typically if you kind of go like sort of like city centre, town centre, or just slightly outside of the towns, okay, there could be local attractions near to that area that you know people are going to be coming through. It's looking for where the flow of people are coming through to is what I'd recommend to be looking for a good location. So Leon then asked about what a good return would be, and you know, that's really an interesting one. So I think, you know, people bang different figures around like what a good return is. I mean, it obviously comes down to what you believe is a good return for you, for your investment. Okay, so, and I think there's a number of factors that it's about obviously how much money you're going to be investing obviously into your service accommodation business, and obviously then looking at what return you're going to be looking at getting from that. I've always tried to work towards that rule of saying like between kind of like £400 to £500 net profit per month. That's kind of like the rule that I've always tried to focus in on. And, you know, but you've got to be mindful of that. So, you know, if you are, let's say if you're operating property, then, so you're doing it on a rent to rent basis. Obviously, if you own the property, you're going to be paying, you know, if you've got a mortgage on that property, you're going to be paying a mortgage. That's going to be a lot less than the rent. So therefore, there's going to be greater margin, greater profit in that. So if you're paying out rental money, then you've kind of lost that little bit because there's obviously a landlord that's taking a little bit off the top of that. So you've lost that little bit of margin. If you're then having that property managed for you, then there's going to be the management fee that's got to then come off that. And then you've got your booking.com fees, and obviously you're a team, your operations team, etc. So like the money can dwindle down quite quickly. So when I would suggest, if you're looking around about £400 or £500 net profit per month, that would be on a kind of a rent to rent type basis, okay, outside of London, okay, is kind of where I would suggest that you want to be kind of like focusing in on, okay. And from that point of view, it's very much about then trying to get that, really getting that to work well for you with those steps that we kind of went through a moment ago. And then from there, once you've got that right, like I've just shared with you, then keep it boutique, then you can just slowly build up from there. there, okay, and then you've got everything in place, the systems in place, then you can build that one £500 unit to another unit and then another unit, and just slowly over time just build it up. There's no race here. Just take your time and just build it up gradually, okay, is what I really encourage you to do. Leon's then asked another question, which is around the this is focused on, so just to finish off with that, if you're in London, then obviously your liability is going to be a lot higher, your rent's going to be a lot higher, okay, so therefore you would be expecting to make, I would be looking at making sort of like £800 to £1,000 net profit per month, because your rent's going to be, you know, probably 2 or 3 times as much as it would be outside of London. Okay, so therefore I would be expecting that profit to be like 2 to 3 times as much, okay, coming through, because your liability is going to be that much higher. Okay, so Leon's final question then is around the 90-day rule in London, and how do we get around that? Okay, so this gets bandied around all the time. So I'm going to just share with you, this is, in my experience, this is how I've operated the 90-day rule, okay, over all the years. The 90-day rule has obviously been there a long time. And so it's always been there ever since I started service accommodation like 20 years ago. There's always been this kind of 90-day rule in place. Obviously it's more well known now because of the whole Airbnb setup, and more people obviously now doing service accommodation, as opposed to when I first started. So quite simply, what I focus in on the corporate clients. And for me, I'm looking for corporate clients that I can find that are staying for, let's say in an ideal scenario, they're staying for 91 days. Okay, so that might sound really obvious, okay, but I'm trying to find corporate clients that are staying for about 91 days. Now, there's a big market within London of tenants, if you like, that don't necessarily want to sign for a kind of a 6-month plus tenancy agreement. They want less than 6 months because they could be working on a project. There's a lot of contractors, a lot of consultants in London, and there is throughout the UK, but obviously we're talking about London here because we're talking about the 90-day rule. So I typically, in an ideal scenario, would be trying to find those corporate clients on a 3-month kind of basis, from September all the way through to about May time, okay, from like September all the way through to about May, June time. That's my focus on trying to find like 91 days, 91 days, 91 days. And then that last quarter, the summer quarter, the peak season, when you've got absolute 100% occupancy in London, okay, I'm then focusing on selling those out on a nightly basis, because I know I can really charge out a much higher rate, okay, and therefore I'm using my 90 days that I've got, my 90-day allowance, where I can sell out on a nightly basis, purely for the summer months. So outside of the summer months, I'm doing kind of a minimum of 91 days, if you like, throughout the 3 quarters of the year. And then the summer months, I'm 90 days. And that really, so the 3 lots of 91 days, so to speak, then that, you know, that I'm looking at that as really covering my costs, making a little bit of margin, okay? So I'm competitive. Okay, I'm looking for corporates that don't want to sign up for 6 months. They want 3 months with the bills included, maybe housekeeping, but they're paying extra for that. And I'm taking the rental price and I'm adding the bills on, and I'm adding a little bit of profit onto that. But I'm not looking at making huge amount of profit at this point here. I want to make this competitive, because what I want is to free up my summer, where I'm absolutely going to be charging top price, and I know I'm going to be 100% occupied, and I'm really trying to sell that in advance. So that's the model that I've always tried to work towards, okay? And it's worked quite well for me over the years, and working with other people along those lines, that's worked quite well. Now, obviously that's in a sort of a, what should we say, you know, in a general term of how to kind of work it. So yeah, so that's what I'd recommend to be doing. That's what I've done. That's worked well, and hopefully that sort of gives you some information. Okay, so I'm going to rattle through these questions because I'm just conscious we're going to run out of time. So Jamie's got a question. Jamie asked the question if he's got he owns a 3-bed terraced house, and he's not sure whether to do it as add the extra room in and make it a HMO, or whether to do it as a serviced accommodation unit. Okay, so again, Jamie, what I would say is that I would focus in initially on your research, understand the marketplace, understand, you know, what types of guests could be staying if you was running it as service accommodation, what types of guests would be staying in your property. Okay, if you've got 3 bedrooms, ideally you've got 2 bathrooms, I'm hoping, okay, you could absolutely focus on your contractor market, okay, because that's exactly the sort of properties they want, depending on the location. So there is an opportunity here to definitely make more money. Contractors are great because they pay per person. They always pay. You know, they're in general terms, they're no hassle. Okay, that's my experience. I'd love to know what your thoughts are with corporates, but in my experience, you know, they're really no hassle. They just want to, you know, they do a hard day's work. They come back, they buy a takeaway, they watch a bit of TV. You know, they go on their phones and stuff like that. Like that's in general how it works. They pay every week. But the great thing with contractors is that they are with you typically for a good period of time. They're not just with you for like 1 or 2 weeks. Typically, they could be with you for a month or even a couple of months. So if you're only then doing 1 clean per week, but they're only paying, let's say you've got 3 or 4 rooms and they're paying, say, 25, 30 pounds a night each. If you add that money together and then multiply that amongst the number of couple of months that they're staying with you, you'll actually find once you take your costs out, your profit's really, really good, as opposed to doing, say, 2 night stays, okay, trying to charge at a higher price, and that turnover you've got then of having to clean it every 2 days for having different guests in the property. So it's definitely worth doing the analysis on the contractor market. So I would definitely say, so Jamie, obviously, I know nothing about HMOs whatsoever, but my view is going to be serviced all the way with this. Like, I'm sure there's going to be other people going to say, no, forget that, Lee. That's hard work. Focus on the HMO. But my view would be really focus it on the service accommodation unit. I would look at the house as a whole, if you can, rather than doing kind of serviced rooms. I've done service rooms before. It's quite hard work doing that. Okay, so it does work, but it's quite labour intensive, having to keep sort of, you know, servicing each room every time. You've got different guests staying in different rooms and what have you. So I'd suggest like focus on trying to let the whole house. And look at the right websites to put that property onto, you know, like the contractor websites, your Gumtrees, get it onto Rightmove, places like that where people are looking for short-term lets. That's exactly what I would be encouraging you to do. Okay, cool. So next question is from David. David has asked top tips on taking on a block of apartments. So he sort of asked like how and where and how do you do that? So okay, so there's quite a lot of details, and I'll probably do a masterclass purely on blocks of apartments if that's of interest to people, okay? Because I think we could do a whole topic on taking on a block of apartments, and I definitely can give you lots of tips on how to do that. But kind of real high level, couple of top tips on taking on a block. So look, this is definitely, I think, the way to go. You know, at some point legislation is going to come into play. So I believe that if you're up and running with service accommodation, you know, again, it's about taking steps. You've got to take baby steps. You're not going to go straight in and take a block from day one. But if you do it in step by step, prove the concept, make sure you're happy with it, and then you're going to be focusing on that, potentially on taking on a block of apartments. Okay, so where would you find the block? So typically I'd be focusing in on kind of developers within your area. So I'd be walking around the streets and looking at what pubs are being converted. You know, there's always like a plot on the corner that's being converted into a block of apartments. I'd get the developers' details. They're always going to have the details on the side of the development site, which could have like a planning application number. You can look that up online. You can then contact the developer. It's going to have his details on the planning application. Contact them directly. Find out if they want to sell. In my experience at the moment is a lot of developers are not selling, they are holding on because they can't sell at the moment because of the whole Brexit setup and what have you. They're just struggling to sell. Finance is still cheap. It's a great opportunity for them to kind of refinance, pull their money out so they can then do their next deal with, okay, which is what developers need to do. So if they can get security around someone taking on a lease of a block of apartments, okay, that could be music to their ears, okay? The same with portfolio landlords. There's like hundreds and thousands of portfolio landlords in the UK, okay? It's a question of finding them. The other tip that I'd share with you to find them is block management companies. So these blocks have to be managed, and they are managed by block management companies. So I recommend that if you find your local block management company and approach them and say that you're looking for a block of apartments that you want to set up as a business, and share with them what you're doing, that is service accommodation. Now, this is a great professional business, okay, that you're offering, okay, and share that with them. And you never know, there may be a block management company that has a landlord that owns a block, that tenancies will be coming to an end, and this could work really well for them, okay? There's obviously lots of advantages around that. So there's the whole kind of section 24 setup, where if they've got them on a buy to let and you're running it for them as a furnished holiday let, they they will be able to sit outside of that. Obviously, this is the final year of Section 24 coming into place, so they can only claim back 25% this year. Next year it'll be 0, they'll be able to claim back. So, this is really going to hit their tax returns next year. So you coming in and potentially taking over the block could work really, really well for you. Okay, so it's something that I definitely recommend to. So that's a couple of tips around blocks, but I think I will definitely do a whole masterclass on that. Mark's asked about direct bookings. So I'm going to just give you one simple tip, and I've shared this before many times, and so you're going to say, Lee, tell us something new. But to me, this is the easiest way to get direct bookings. Okay, use booking.com, get guests to come in and stay with you through booking.com. Okay, I encourage you to do that. Okay, and then make contact with those guests. Okay, get those guests to come and repeat, get them to come and book with you directly. Okay, and you're going to do that quite simply. You're not going to discount their prices. Okay, keep the prices at a decent price, okay, but add value to that guest stay. Okay, so I really encourage you to package up that guest stay. So if it's a corporate coming back in to stay with you, okay, offer them your corporate package, which could just be simply a free Sunday night stay, which means that if they stay Monday through to Wednesday night, they get Sunday night for free. Okay, I've shared that before with people, but it definitely works. Okay, create a package for that corporate guest that's adding value, that's not costing you any money. It could be something like you're going to iron their shirts for them. It could be a gym membership that you can provide for them. Think about what you can offer them, okay, and try and get those guests to come back and book with you directly. It could be something simple like if they book with you directly, that they receive a £5 Amazon voucher from you, or a £10 Amazon voucher if they come and book with you directly. Okay, it could be something simple like that, okay, that will encourage them to come back and stay with you. You want something you can add value and get them to come back and stay with you. Okay, I don't recommend, if you can help it, having to like reduce the price by like 10-15%. It depends on the corporate, because you're going to have your contractors that are self-employed and they're having to pay for the accommodation themselves, so in which case that they are price sensitive. But then you're going to have other contractors that are being paid for by the client, and they're obviously not going to be price sensitive. So again, it's good to understand what that type of corporate guest and whether they are they're self-employed or whether they're obviously contracted through a client. Okay. Mohammed has asked best locations to start and scale. And then I had a question that came up on the WhatsApp group just before I went online, which was the best areas in the country. Okay, so I'll kind of answer both of these. So Mohammed's question, I'm not sure who asked the question on the WhatsApp group, but I'll answer both of these together. So best locations. Okay, so again, if you Google search, you can actually see that the Savills have actually have completed a report that tells you the best locations, the top, if you like, the top locations within the UK to be investing in serviced accommodation. Okay, so if you search Savills, there is a report by Savills, and if I can find the link, I'll share it with you on this group. But the top kind of 5 locations that came up on that report were as follows. You'll be pleased to know those people that are in Manchester, that came out at top of the list. Okay, so Manchester is definitely a place to be doing service accommodation. All those people now in Manchester are going to be going, oh, thanks very much, Lee, for sharing that. We thought we had a kind of a hold on Manchester, but yeah, Manchester definitely. So really, if you think about like your key satellite cities, so Manchester is definitely a place of growth for serviced accommodation. Liverpool is definitely an area for growth for serviced accommodation. Those people from Liverpool I know are going to be cursing me for saying that. Obviously London is still, there's still growth in London, although there's obviously there's more and more properties coming up for serviced accommodation, but obviously there is this whole 90-day rule in London, so I do see that becoming a bit more restrictive, and I think there'll probably be some people that will be coming out of the marketplace in London as the rule gets, as they start to kind of, if you like, police that rule a lot harder, which I believe they will be doing over time. Especially if our mayor gets his own way around that. A couple of other locations, so Glasgow is definitely, again, huge opportunity there. But again, they are going through legislation at the moment. So be mindful of that, okay, and what those rules are that are coming into place there. And then Chelmsford in Essex was the other location that came up, which I thought was quite interesting. I've always felt that kind of Chelmsford and that side of Essex has huge potential because of Crossrail coming all the way through from obviously from west to east, if you like, or east to west, which way you want to look at it. So I always thought there's a huge opportunity there. So you've got people that are kind of staying just slightly outside in Essex and traveling, commuting into the centre of London. You know, they're going to be able to do that really quickly soon, or they could even travel from there and travel all the way across to obviously Reading, or get to Heathrow quite easily when Crossrail finally opens. So yeah, so that's some key locations there that I recommend. Kunal has asked setup costs. So in terms of setting up costs for your service accommodation, again, this is kind of listed out on the profit matrix that I recently put together. So again, that's there. Just log on to my Facebook page and you can just download that there for you. But the key things on your setup costs are, or things that you may want to negotiate with your landlord, if you like, is definitely furniture. Okay, if you can try and encourage the landlord to pay for the furniture, because they can obviously claim all that back through their tax. I definitely recommend to try and do that if you can. Some people prefer to pay out for furniture up front, and some people, like from a cash flow point of view, like to obviously finance the furniture. So again, this is kind of like really your personal choice with this. I believe sort of financing it through cash flow is a better way to do it. Okay, so it holds your capital that way. But if you can try and encourage, as part of your negotiations, get your landlord to pay for it, that would be fantastic. You've got your deposit. So where you can, again, some people like to put down their deposit because they know they're going to potentially get that back. Some people like to use deposit insurance. So there's deposit insurance schemes out there where they protect the deposit, and you could do it that way if you wanted to. So again, it's up to you as to how you wanted to do that. But there are a couple of costs that you need to be thinking about. Obviously, there's going to be things once you're up and running with the property in terms of obviously insurances. So you've got to make sure you've got your public liability in place. So you've definitely got to make sure you've got that. And it's just all the little things, making sure obviously you've got your broadband set up and things like that. So making sure when you set up your property, you've got everything there and in place. And I definitely encourage you to make sure you try and get everything in place from day one as much as you possibly can on the setup cost side. So again, if you've got any other questions around that, then please put them on and I'll be really happy to answer those for you. Daniel has asked, I've got one more question after this, and then I'm going to jump onto the questions that we have here. Daniel has asked, what KPI, so what would you measure on a kind of day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month basis? So the key ones for me, I mean, there's lots of things you can measure, but the key ones for me, I definitely want to really be really measuring my guest reviews, because we know in this day and age, it is really about those guest reviews. So I really encourage you to look at the guest reviews, understand, you know, if there's a pattern in the kind of, you know, the cleaning, as I've mentioned. Okay, understand if there's a pattern in obviously the service level that you're providing, and really try and don't take it as a negative, try and take it as a positive, and try and embrace what people are saying. Okay, so you know, you are going to get some comments from people, and you sometimes just got to just ignore certain things, but in general, you've got to just like look at the feedback that you're receiving from your guests. Okay, so definitely I'll be looking at guest reviews as a measure. I also want to know, as I've already mentioned, my occupancy levels, and I want to be looking at how you can increase those occupancy levels on a month-by-month basis. We know seasonality is going to come into play, so you've got to be thinking about obviously the low season, especially if you are in, like, say, a seaside, like a seasonal location, like a seaside resort, you know, like a Bournemouth or a Brighton, somewhere like that. So you've got to be thinking about that. If you're city centre, you know, like a London or you know, a Liverpool or a Manchester, okay, then you need to be really focusing in on those occupancy levels. It could be, like, say, somewhere like Liverpool. I know it's slowly changing now, but Liverpool is very much predominant for like the hen weekends. So I know of a number of operators that focus really on the kind of like the Thursday through to Sunday night stays, and then whatever they could bring in sort of like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday was just a bonus on top. But Thursday to Sunday were their main focus. That was their main business, which was really all geared towards kind of like hen weekends coming into Liverpool. So it's really, again, understanding your guests and really thinking about that as well. So that would definitely be a measure I'd be looking at, is occupancy. And then again, as I've already mentioned, I'd be looking at that your nightly rates over the number of nights, like throughout the month. So taking your revenue figure and then dividing that by the number of nights within that month, okay, and then measuring your kind of your average nightly rate along those lines. Okay, so again, you want to be looking at how you can increase that month by month. a little bit at a time. Okay, again, bringing seasonality into it, and then as you build up that track record year on year, you want to be able to see how you can kind of improve on that. And that could be things, as we've already mentioned. The final one I was going to mention is direct bookings via OTAs, via your booking.coms and your Airbnbs and what have you, because like we've just mentioned, you want to make sure you're receiving as many bookings coming in as you like, cast the net as wide as you can, get as many bookings in as you can, and then you want to be able to convert those bookings over to direct bookings as much as possible. So to have a measure on how many bookings have come in from your, or how much revenue is being generated through your OTAs for the month, and how much revenue is being generated from direct bookings, and you want to be able to see how you can get that direct bookings like kind of slowly over time leveling, being on par with your OTAs, or kind of like being slightly higher. Okay, so that's a measure that I'd recommend. So if you just kept it really simple, they would be like the sort of 3 or 4 measures that I would definitely be looking at putting in place. Okay, final question from the emails that have come through is from Julie, and Julie has asked, and I love this question, okay, because this is obviously my real passion, is Lee, what smart tech would you be using, would you be recommending in your essays? Obviously there's a whole range of smart tech that you can be putting in. A lot of you know, like my main strategy is buying traditional bed and breakfasts and repurposing the space, adding more value, and then placing smart technology into that space to create these self-service boutique smart hotels. So that's kind of what I'm focused on. So in terms of things that I'd recommend you can add into your essay, definitely the big thing that you have to do, if you're not already doing, I recommend is your key entry systems. So, you know, the days of kind of using a key, you know, like a multi-slot or a Yao key, is definitely, I would say, is kind of try and move away from that where you can. I appreciate on blocks, if you've kind of got 1 or 2 apartments within a block, that may be difficult, but where you can, try and use kind of keyless entry systems. You know, there's everything in. When I first put one of these in one of our buildings many years, like a good few years ago now, it was a Yao system, and Yao is still very, very good. But it was really expensive, and it was quite a basic system. You know, you've now got systems in place where it does link straight into your phone. And you can, as you approach the door, it picks it up through GPS and it opens the door for you. Okay, so that's there already. One of the things that we're testing at the moment on one of our hotels, which I think is really cool if we get it right, is that the whole idea is I'm really into trying to profile you as a guest before you've arrived. So I kind of want to know, you know, what type of food you like. You know, if you like, you know, Italian food, and I want to be able to recommend the best Italian restaurant, like a nice local restaurant. You know, if you like coffee, I want to recommend the best kind of local artisan coffee shop within the area, and I want to find out what type of music you like. So, you know, when you arrive, you know, if you're a big kind of Barry White fan, if you like, and I know that from you, okay, I'm looking at Mark's on here at the moment, so Mark, I'm sure he's a Barry White fan. Okay, so when Mark arrives at his property and Mark kind of goes to his property with his phone, the door opens for him, Mark steps into his property, and it's playing Barry White music as Mark walks in. You know, that's the ultimate to me. So I jest slightly here, but that technology is there. It's there, and it's only going to get better. So things like definitely your key entry systems, I definitely recommend to be placing in, and then. You can do basic things like using obviously smart TV. I definitely recommend that. Most people have Netflix accounts nowadays, so they want to have the app that they can go on and obviously use Netflix. I definitely recommend that where you can. I'd be very mindful not to put anything in too complicated. So or things that you want to have guests that are coming in and they can use the technology. Okay, so again, we will be testing soon. Amazon Alexa hospitality enables you as a guest when you arrive, you can ask Alexa to open the curtains and Alexa to put Netflix on. So, you know, that's voice activated, so that's quite easy to use. But what you don't want is a guest arriving and you've got a really complicated kind of like control pad on the wall and you can't work out what button it is to kind of turn the lights on, if you like. So just be mindful of that. We learned the lesson when we opened the hotel in Brighton. Had a guest that stayed on the first weekend, and it was all we had. one of these iPads that had various bits of information on, and that was linked to the smart TV, but we didn't have a terrestrial aerial, so you had to kind of go onto the app to download like BBC iPlayer or Netflix or what have you. And we had a guest that stayed and they're straight on the phone saying, Lee, all I want to do is turn the TV on. I just want to watch the footy and I can't even get to it. I'm having to go through all these bloody apps and blah, blah, blah. So just be mindful of that with guests. It's a big lesson that I learned at that point. But anyway, cool. Okay, fantastic. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to work my way back. I'll go back to the beginning. You've been very, very patient, and I really hope this has given you like huge value. I love doing these Facebook Live sessions, especially around a Q&A type session where we've got more time to answer questions and stuff. So this is definitely something I want to be looking at doing on a regular basis with you. So do keep your questions coming, and if I'm unable to answer them, we got kind of about 10 minutes left, then I will come back and I will answer those for you. But yeah, I really hope the whole idea here is just to give you value, just to share my experience, share my knowledge with you as the community, and yeah, and just, you know, as I said, this is a great business, but you've got to, yeah, you're learning all the time. You know, we're all constantly learning. Brilliant. So let's have a quick look through. Yeah, so Nathan, we've kind of covered insurances. You're talking about what compliance should be in place and what have you. So yeah, there's definitely, again, it depends on how you're set up. Whether you're set up, you know, whether you're the landlord and you're letting out your property, like you own your property and you're letting it out, or whether you are an operator, so you're guaranteeing the rent to the landlord and then you're operating that property, or whether you're managing the property on behalf of the landlord. Okay, so depending on the structure that you have in place is obviously going to slightly depend on what kind of insurances and things that you need in place. But I definitely recommend public liability is definitely a must that you must make sure you've definitely got in place. Carolina, great question. Google hotel ads, how to start advertising with them. Yeah, so I mean, I put a post on this recently. So Google are absolutely now really focusing in on hospitality and on travel in particular. So, you know, I wouldn't be at all surprised if they buy someone like Booking.com or something. I mean, that's just me saying that. So, but I wouldn't be at all surprised. You know, they're obviously huge and they could easily do that, but they're definitely moving much more into this kind of travel space now. So definitely recommend get yourself set up with your Google for business. Okay, get that set up. I really do encourage you to do that. I know that, and I'm sure he won't mind me saying, Mark Simpson, I know that you're listening in to the Facebook Live, so recommend to touch base with Mark, because this is a big thing I know that Mark is into. I know he's been putting a lot of posts out there at the moment around this, so definitely recommend touch base with Mark. But first and foremost, get yourself listed. Get Google Business set up for you. It's definitely the way I think of how things are going to be going in the future. Definitely. Is it worth using price labs? What's the best way to get right prices? Would you compare against hotels? So yeah, so I would, yeah, price labs are good. I know they're not cheap, but I know that they do work. In terms of comparing hotels and so, I would definitely, so for me, so keep it really simple. Set yourself up with an account on Booking.com. The first thing that I do. Okay, so once you put your username and password in, you can have up to 5 likes of property. So let's take your location. Let's take Basingstoke as a location as an example. Okay, so you're going to go into Basingstoke and you're going to then go, right, okay, let's have a look on Booking.com. Let's look at the map, and we want to look at kind of like in the center. Okay, right, what properties are around the center? So what hotels and what service apartments are within the center? Okay, and then you're looking for your top 5 that you're going to be competing against. Okay, so I definitely would recommend like a hotel chain. Within that, I definitely recommend an independent hotel, and then obviously your service apartments. There's not obviously many branded ones at the moment in all the locations, but you know, where there is a branded service apartment, I definitely would add those into your list as well. Okay, and you're looking for obviously, you know, the kind of what equivalent to what you're getting, what you're going to want to achieve guest review wise, which hopefully is going to be kind of 8+. And then what your price is, what you're looking at charging out at, because you've kind of gone through the profit matrix, and you know what sort of profit you want to make, so you know what your nightly rate's going to be, and therefore that's all your research side. So then you kind of focus in on that. Okay, so definitely recommend to do that, and really. Like, you can do this as like a quick cup of coffee, like 11 o'clock in the morning. Just get yourself onto Booking.com, look at your set of 5. Okay, refresh the screen, have a look for the day, look for next week, look for next month. Just pick some random dates and just look at what all the prices are that are being charged for all 5 competitor, or all 4 competitors, because the 5th one would be your property, obviously, and just make sure that you're kind of in line. That's a really simple, quick way to check your pricing. Now, I share that with many people. I know a lot of people do that. That's kind of what we would do, you know, as a kind of a quick fix just to kind of start up with. So definitely recommend that, and I hope that helps. Madrini is saying, would it be worth paying a channel manager if you only have 1 unit? No, I personally wouldn't. I would keep it really simple, and I would probably just use booking.com and Airbnb to start with, maybe HomeAway, and I would just link those up, maybe through like an iCal, just to kind of link them together. Booking.com, you can obviously link in Airbnb and what have you in Airbnb, you can put booking.com in. So to start with, if you're starting off, keep it really simple. I would personally just focus on booking.com and Airbnb. I would link those two, sync the diary together, the calendar together, which you can do when you set up on booking.com. And that keeps it really simple. It keeps your costs right down, and it's a really simple way to kind of start up, okay? Then from there, when you then start to add on, you know, unit number 2, unit number 3, and what have you, you can either then obviously group that onto booking.com and you add more units onto that, or you may then look at maybe bringing on board a channel manager from there. So, you know, there's a real basic channel manager that I've used in the past called Free to Book. Okay, Free to Book. They do exactly what they say in the tin. They're very cheap to set up with, and that could be a really simple way to get going. And then you've got a whole range of other channel managers out there, from obviously Avivo through to Kigo through to Toki, and obviously I know that Naeem is obviously creating his new platform, which looks, you know, really amazing. What he's looking at putting together. So there's a whole range of them that are out there. Okay, but yeah, to start off with, I keep it really simple. If I was you. Caroline, I hope I just answered your question there about channel manager, joint venture agreement. What should you make with an investor? Oh, that's a great question. Okay, I'm going to come back and just answer that in a minute, Emily, for you. Okay, because I just want to share something with you. I'm going to wrap that up at the end for you about agreements. Okay. Caroline's asked about contractors and what kind of companies. So yeah, I would Google search companies. So again, I've done a direct bookings masterclass. If you go onto my YouTube channel, there is a direct bookings masterclass there just for you, which I go through my kind of top tips on how to find corporates. Okay, so I definitely recommend to watch that. Okay, but very simply, I would focus on Google. I would look for I do top 100 companies within your area with employees of 50 plus, okay, and see who comes up as a list, okay, and they would be the ones that I'd then be focusing in on as an example, okay. So keeping it really simple, that's exactly what I would do. Madrina, I've answered the question about the 90-day rule for you. How do you ID checks work when guests book? So different ways to do that. You may want to do meet and greet, and you do the ID check upon meet and greet. You can get people to obviously send you through. I mean, you've got to be so careful here with the whole kind of GDPR setup. Okay, so just like really follow the rules around GDPR. You know, we have in the past obviously got guests to kind of send it through to us on a WhatsApp, but now we've kind of like being GDPR compliant. You've got to be so careful with that. Okay, I would prefer to get guests to actually physically show me where we possibly can. Okay, definitely recommend that. Mark Adams loves AC/DC. You're not a Barry White fan then, Mark. Okay, that's a shame. Yeah, Bobby loves the tech. That's brilliant. Yeah, Mark Simpson, totally agree with you. Watch Amazon Expedia. Yeah, great. There was a great article last week on Amazon, and obviously them looking at potentially buying Airbnb. I mean, that's the rumors that are going around at the moment. So it will be really interesting to see that. The hotels, no, I'm not necessarily taking them on a lease basis. We're trying to buy the freehold with my investors, Mark, just to share that with you. Yeah, fantastic, brilliant. Okay, great. We are coming towards the end of the hour. I've really tried to give you as much content as I possibly can, as always, and hopefully as much value as I can. And all I hope is that you can take 1 or 2 snippets from what I've shared with you in this past hour, and I just would love you to implement those into your business. That's all I'd love you to do, okay? Because as I've shared, like, service accommodation is a great business, okay? It's hard work, it's a great business. We have a fantastic community to all work together, okay, to really help each other and develop our businesses along the way. Okay, there's enough business for everybody out there. Okay, when I started 20 years ago, I was on my own. There was no one to talk to. Okay, so we're in a brilliant situation now where there are lots of people doing it, and I really encourage you to kind of get involved with the different Facebook groups that are out there. Okay, get to as many networking events as you can. Okay, and really just test things out. All I can encourage you to do is just do it. Okay, it's the best way to try these things out. But I really do recommend keep to the 5 steps as much as you possibly can. So make sure you do your research. Okay, look at the type of property, focus on the marketing, the operations, and your finance and your KPIs. If you bring it back to basics like that, okay, and just take one step at a time and make sure you're working through each one of those. That's really what I would encourage you to do, okay? I think that's really, really super important to do that. I love sharing my knowledge. I love sharing my mistakes. I love sharing the challenges and the solutions that we come up with along the way with all of you. I encourage you to please do the same with us. Like, no one knows everything. Okay, things are changing and evolving, and we're all learning all the time, and there's different opportunities that come our way all the time. So let's definitely keep working together as much as we possibly can. Just to share, one of the final things I just want to share with you, okay, is this. Okay, we can talk about the 5 steps with service accommodation, but the absolute key thing that I think you've really got to focus in on, okay, and I really want to concentrate on this just for 1 minute of your time, okay, so we're about to wrap up here, okay, is you've got to really understand your strategy. Okay, you need to really understand, okay, because this is a serviced business, okay, it's a hospitality business. You have to understand, okay, is, do you see yourself meeting guests, okay, communicating with guests, okay, and being in a hospitality type role, okay, because that's what this business is about, okay? And if you don't see yourself like that, that isn't a problem at all, okay? It really isn't. So what you need to think about with strategy, okay, and that comes on to one of the questions that was asked previously, is really understanding, how do you see yourself within the service accommodation model? Because there's lots of stuff bandied around about you can make all this money and it's amazing and all that kind of stuff, sort of thing. But just be mindful of the fact that kind of probably, you know, sometimes people just trying to sell courses to get you onto to kind of like then go through all this stuff with you. Okay, so just be really mindful that you understand your strategy, and you've got to know, like, what are you trying to get out of this business? Okay, so you could be a landlord and you own buy-to-let property, okay, and you want to move those tenants out and you want to turn those into service accommodation. There's nothing wrong with that whatsoever, okay? The whole using buy-to-let as a mortgage product is a kind of a separate question, but put that to one side. You've got property there and you may want to look at trying to increase your cash flow, okay? But you then need to decide as a landlord, do you want to be running that property? Okay, you have options at this point. As a landlord, you could quite simply pass the property over to an operator, okay, and that operator can guarantee you rent. That's the rent to rent model. Okay, you get a guaranteed rent coming in, it's being run as serviced, okay. You could even maybe structure a deal where they guarantee the rent to you and they give you a slice of the profits, okay, and that happens all the time, okay. Or as a landlord, you may decide you've got your property, okay, and you want someone to manage it for you, okay, in which case they would take a management fee, okay, and then they would then pass the rest of the money across to you, okay. So you may decide to do it along those lines. So as a landlord, it's really important to understand, okay, what your strategy is. Do you want to be kind of front facing? Okay, like, I enjoy meeting guests, but that's not for everybody, okay. Some people like to be in the background and just running everything, okay, and they like to have a front of house person. There's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. You need to decide what your strategy is. Do you want to be a landlord that sits in the background, okay, and obviously collects the cash in? Maybe it's guaranteed rent, maybe it's guaranteed rent with a bit of profit, okay, or do you want to be able to just receive all the profit coming in, okay, as a landlord? You want to do it that way. Maybe you're an operator, maybe you don't own any property and you haven't got the money to buy a property, and you're going to use rent to rent as a strategy to take on property, which is how I started off, and that's a brilliant strategy to do, okay. Again, you need to decide that you're then going to be front of house, okay, and you're going to be guaranteeing that rent to that landlord. Or you may want to strike a deal with that landlord where you give them a share of the profits and you only pay them the guaranteed rent as the money comes in. So again, there's different ways of how you can structure a deal with a landlord, okay? Or you may be looking at, you've got an operational business and you're up and running, and you want to be looking at how you can just leverage all the systems and your team and everything you've got, and you want to manage other people's properties within the area, okay? And you're going to set up a management business. And that's a great idea to be able to do that. Again, I encourage you, keep it boutique, really get everything working for you, okay, as much as you possibly can. So you could own property, you could do it on an operational basis, on a rent-to-rent basis, or you can manage property. But the key thing is that we can go through the 5 steps, okay, quite easily, but you need to understand, okay, and really, really focus in on what is your strategy. What are you trying to get out of the service accommodation business, okay? And once you understand that, then you know the type of partner you need to be looking at to potentially be working with, okay, or the person you need to be outsourcing things to. So I really want you to kind of like take that away from as the final kind of nugget of this workshop. I hope that I've given you, as I said, a lot of value there. Thank you so much for engaging and asking all your questions. Keep the questions coming. I will keep answering them for you, okay, even if you're picking up this live video tomorrow or the next day, okay. It'll all be recorded. It'll be sitting on my page, so you've got it there to listen to. And the final thing I just want to say is that it's all very well having all this content and being able to share all that, but you've got to make sure that you're going to implement what you're actually doing with the business, okay? And so I step in there. If you're interested in working with me, okay, I work with selected people on a mentoring basis. If that's of interest to you, then just drop me a direct message, and we can just pick up and have a chat about that, and I can share that with you, okay? So content is free. It's there for you. Please take it. Please do something with it. If you need someone to kind of put an arm around the shoulder, a little kick up the backside, sometimes we all need that, and a bit of direction, then my 90-day mentoring may be of interest to you. So thank you so much for listening. Have a great rest of the evening, and we'll definitely touch base soon. Thank you very much.